He couldn't even go to work without begging for a hug.
You always loved turning me into a joke.
What do you do when the man you called clingy stands in a lobby and calmly hands you papers that split your life in half? Why did one simple hug before work turn into the moment a judge decided where our daughter sleeps and who keeps the house? Can I still pretend I'm the victim when his lawful revenge lands in front of my whole family? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm not a monster, even if that is what everyone says now. I am a wife, a mother, a woman with a full-time job and a million things to do. I am not some soft, sentimental girl who melts every time a man wants attention. When my husband, Caleb, asked for a hug before work that morning, I honestly thought he was joking. He already had his coffee, his lunch, his clean clothes. He wanted a hug too. I told him he was not a kid, that he should grow up, and I shut the door. Hard. It felt like setting a simple boundary. I did not know that moment would follow me into a courthouse lobby months later. I did not know that little scene, that stupid hug, would be saved on cameras, in messages, in other people's memories. I did not know my own words, and jokes would walk back into my life inside a stack of legal papers. People act like he is some broken hero now, like he quietly suffered while I destroyed him. They don't understand. Caleb was clingy, needy, always wanting more. I just wanted space, respect, and a bit of excitement. Is that really such a crime? I'm still sure that morning was normal. That is what makes everyone so dramatic to me now. They talk like it was some tragic movie scene, like Caleb stood under the rain crying while I broke his heart. It was not like that. It was just a Tuesday, cold and grey, and I was tired. The alarm went off at 6. I hit snooze twice. When I finally sat up, Caleb was already out of bed. I heard the soft sounds from the kitchen, the mug on the counter, the cupboard doors. He was always like that, quiet and careful, like a ghost that makes breakfast. I moved slowly, checking my phone before I even got to the bathroom. There were 3 work emails from my boss, one stupid meme from Nadia, and a notification from the kindergarten app saying there was a new newsletter. Nothing special. I ignored the newsletter, answered one email in bed, and stared at Nadia's meme for a full minute. It was a short video of a man whining at his girlfriend because she forgot to kiss him goodbye. The caption said that some men are just large toddlers. I laughed, because of course I did. It felt true. I sent a quick reply to Nadia, saying that this was my life. Then I got up. By the time I walked into the kitchen, Caleb had already packed Lena's little lunch and lined up 3 mugs, one for him, one for me, one for hot chocolate that he would leave on the table for when she woke up. He did it every morning. Most people would say that is sweet. I used to think so too. At some point it started to feel like a subtle guilt trick, like he wanted me to remember how good he was all the time. He looked up when I came in. He said good morning in his usual soft way and asked if I slept okay. I said I slept fine and asked why he was up so early. He said he had to cover an extra round at the hospital and might be late coming home. I only half heard him. I was scrolling my phone while I drank my coffee. He moved near me while I stood by the counter. He smelled like that clean soap he liked, and his hair was still damp. He stood there for a second, then he shifted, like he wanted something but was afraid to ask. Finally, he said he wanted a hug before he left, because the day would be long. I remember the exact thought that ran through my head. I am not doing this emotional baby game at 6:30 in the morning. I looked at the time on the microwave. I thought about my commute, my boss, the emails, the bills. I thought about Lena and her clothes, and the dishes in the sink. I was holding my mug in one hand and my phone in the other. I felt crowded, even though he was just standing there. I told him he was not a kid and that he should grow up. I did not scream. My voice was sharp, Yes, but not wild. I stepped around him, went to the front door, and opened it. He stood by the kitchen archway, staring like he could not believe what I had said. That annoyed me even more. He asked if I really could not give him one hug before work. I said I did not have time for neediness that early. I told him to go to work and handle his responsibilities. Then I pulled the door closed. It slammed harder than I planned, because my hand jerked with the motion. The sound echoed down the hall. Maybe he flinched. I did not look back to check. I felt a tight, hot anger in my chest for no clear reason, as if he had tried to trap me. In my head, the story was simple. I was a busy woman, not his mother. He needed to understand that. In the elevator, I opened my phone again. Nadia had sent another message asking how my morning was. I typed that my husband had just begged for a hug like a toddler. I added that I told him to grow up and go to work. She replied with a line of laughing faces and said that men needed to hear the truth sometimes. I liked that. It made me feel like I had done something strong, not cruel. When I got back that evening, the apartment felt strange. It was too quiet. Lena was at my mother's place for a sleepover, so I expected some silence, but this was different. Caleb's shoes were by the door in their normal place. His jacket was on the hook. A faint smell of pasta hung in the air. But he did not call out when he heard my keys. He usually did. I walked into the kitchen and saw 2 plates in the sink, rinsed and neatly stacked. On the counter, there were 2 mugs, one near the coffee machine and one by the far wall. It was a small thing, but it bothered me that they were so far apart, like they belonged to 2 different people who did not stand in the same place anymore. He was in the living room, sitting on the couch with his laptop open. The TV was off. The only light came from a floor lamp. His face looked tired, but his eyes were clear. He asked if my day was okay. I said it was fine, just busy. I asked where Lena was, even though I knew. He said she had fallen asleep at my mother's, and that Darla offered to keep her overnight. He did not ask me about the morning. He did not demand an apology. He did not mention the slammed door. That made me feel more irritated, not less. It felt like he was silently accusing me by being calm. I went to change and then sat down at the edge of the couch, scrolling through my phone again. After a few minutes, he closed his laptop and placed it on the coffee table. I noticed that a sticky note was stuck to the top of it, with just 2 words written in his neat handwriting. Bring forms. I did not know what that meant. Work, I assumed. Some boring hospital procedure. He asked, very careful, if he could talk about the morning. I rolled my eyes and said he could if he really needed to. He said he felt hurt, that he just wanted a hug before a long shift, that he did not expect to be told to grow up. He said it made him feel small. In my mind, this sounded like a rehearsed speech. I did not see a man trying to share his feelings. I saw a man trying to make me feel guilty. So I told him that was not what happened. I told him he was exaggerating, that he made it sound worse because he liked to play the victim. I said I was under pressure, that I handle most of the mental load, that I could not also manage his emotions every second. I said he was acting like a child. I said real men accept when their partner is busy and do not beg for attention like puppies. I used those exact words: child, puppy, mental load. I made sure to sound like a woman in control, because that always shuts men down. He looked at the blank TV screen for a long time. Then he said he did not want to argue. He said he would try to need less from me. That sentence made me oddly triumphant at first. Then, when I thought about it later, it made me strangely cold inside. Later that night, I drove to my mother's house to pick up Lena. I walked in and found Darla and my sister Kelsey at the dining table with a bottle of cheap wine and a half-eaten pizza. Lena was asleep on the couch with a blanket over her. My mother asked where Caleb was. I said he was at home, sulking. That was the word I used. Kelsey asked why. I told them about the hug, but not the way it really happened. I told them he had blocked the doorway that morning and whined that he could not go to work without his goodbye cuddle. I mimicked his voice a little, higher and softer, which made them laugh. Darla shook her head and said that men never grow up if you baby them. She said that he was lucky I tolerated it for this long. She reminded me that her ex, my father, used to do similar things, pretending to be weak so she would feel guilty and do everything. We always came back to that story. She liked to see her past in my present. Kelsey was quieter. She laughed, but not as loud as my mother. She asked if he really said he could not go to work without a hug. I shrugged and said that was basically what he meant, that he made a big sad face and looked like Lena when she cannot find her toy. I knew I was exaggerating, but it felt right. My mother lifted her glass and said that I should never reward that kind of behavior, because it becomes worse. She told me to keep my standards high and not let him drag me down with his feelings. I nodded and said that was what I was doing. It felt good to be told I was strong instead of mean. Kelsey asked how Caleb was with Lena lately. I said he was fine, that he spoiled her too much, that he gave in when she cried, instead of teaching her to be tough. My mother agreed and said that was why I had to be the hard one, because someone needed to keep order. I did not say that when I arrived. Lena had been asleep with her small hand still holding one of Caleb's old t-shirts, like a comfort toy. I thought it was silly, but I also folded the shirt back under the blanket when I picked her up. On the way home, Lena woke up in the car seat and asked if Daddy was angry. She said she heard loud noises in the morning. Her voice was small and sleepy. I told her Daddy was just being silly and dramatic, that grown-ups sometimes made big sounds, but it meant nothing. I said she did not need to worry. She seemed unsure, but nodded and fell back asleep. When we reached the apartment, the hallway was dim and quiet. Inside, Caleb was sitting at the table again, the laptop in front of him. This time, a spreadsheet was open on the screen. I saw lines and dates, little notes in the first column. He quickly minimized it when he saw us, and I thought he was just doing more boring work things. I did not ask. He took Lena from my arms and carried her gently to her room. When he came back, he asked if my mother had said anything about the morning. I said she agreed with me. I said even my mother thought he needed to stop acting like a child. He looked tired when he heard that. Not angry, just tired. He said he did not want our daughter to think affection was childish. I said she needed to see that respect came first. I said respect follows results, and I had results. I reminded him that I handled the schedule, the school forms, the rent payments. I said a small thing like a hug should not matter compared to all that. I believed it, at least in that moment. He did not answer right away. He went to the counter, made tea, and stood with his back to me. I watched him open a drawer and take out a new keyring. He slipped a small new key onto it, one I had not seen before. The click of metal was soft but clear. When he turned, he said, "We should be careful how we talk in front of Lena." I laughed and asked if he was threatening me with some parenting lecture. He said nothing of that sort. He said only that he wanted things to be clear and calm for her, and that he was done shouting or crying. He said he would not do that anymore. I said he never really did it anyway, that he just sulked and made me feel like the bad guy. I walked past him, picked up my phone, and checked my notifications again. There was a new message from Nadia, asking if I had survived my man baby. I sent her a voice note, telling the hug story in an even more dramatic way, adding that he almost begged on his knees. It felt funny, it felt like content. Across the room, I heard the faint whir of the printer start up and then stop. I saw a single blank page slide out. Caleb picked it up and held it like he was checking if something had printed. Then he slid it into the same manila folder I had seen earlier, the one now labeled with a small sticker that said household. He put the folder into the sideboard drawer and closed it with a quiet push. I heard the soft click of a lock I did not know that drawer had. I went to bed first that night, still telling myself I had only set a boundary. He came in later, lay on the very edge of the mattress, and did not reach for me. I told myself I liked the space. I told myself his silence was proof he wanted to punish me, not that he was truly hurt. In the dark, his phone lit up once. I saw a small calendar reminder appear and fade. It said meeting, personal, scheduled for next week, with a little briefcase icon next to it. I did not care enough to ask what it was. I fell asleep, sure that nothing important had happened that day, that all I had done was remind my husband he was not a child. I'm not sure when things at work started to feel more real than things at home. Maybe it was that first week after the hug incident, as people like to call it now, when the office lights felt kinder than the light in our kitchen. The morning after, the apartment moved like a machine. Caleb had already left when I came out of the bedroom. His shoes were gone from the mat. His jacket was not on the hook. The coffee machine was off and cleaned, like nobody lived there. There was just one mug in the dish rack, upside down, still wet from a rinse. On the fridge, the usual list of groceries had a new line in his tidy handwriting, printer ink. Under it, in smaller letters, I saw organize files. I rolled my eyes, because of course Caleb's big reaction to a fight was to color-code his documents. Lena ate cereal with her knees tucked under her. She asked if Daddy was still at the hospital. I told her he had to go in early, that he was busy helping sick people. That always made him look noble in her eyes. I did not say he had left without kissing me, or that I had woken up alone on the very edge of the bed. On the train, I scrolled through my phone. Nadia had left me a voice note right after midnight. She liked to dramatize everything. In it, she said she could not believe Caleb had begged for a hug, and that I was right to shut him down. She said she would have done it with more style, though, maybe with a little laugh instead of a slam. I smiled and replayed the part where she called me savage twice. It made me feel fun, not cruel. After all, it was just a hug. When I reached the office, everything looked the same as always. Rows of desks, plastic plants, the hum of old computers. I worked in admin for a logistics company, which means I spent most days chasing other people's mistakes. People always needed me to fix something. It was boring, but I was good at it. Nadia sat at her desk near mine, already in full makeup, even though it was barely 9. She waved her phone at me as I put my bag down. She asked with a grin if my man-child had behaved this morning. I told her he had gone to work early, very mature, very silent. I rolled my eyes and added that he was now punishing me by being calm. She laughed and said that men either cry or avoid you. There is no middle. Marco walked by as we talked, carrying his laptop and a coffee. He was in sales, the kind of job that lets a man move around and feel important. He looked over when he heard Nadia say, "Man-child," and slowed a little. He asked who we were talking about. Nadia answered before I could, telling him my husband had a meltdown because I did not hug him before work. I corrected her, because I do care about the truth when it helps me. I said there had been no meltdown, just whining. I explained that he had wanted a hug, like a goodbye kiss in some movie, even though he knew I was late and stressed. I told them I had told him to grow up and go to work. Nadia clapped her hands and said that was the energy all women needed. Marco smiled. He said, in that smooth tone, that at least Caleb loved me, that some men barely talk to their wives in the morning. It sounded kind, but his eyebrows were raised in a way that said clingy too. I shrugged and said love was fine, but I needed a partner, not a second child. I said I already had one small human asking for cuddles. I did not need another. Nadia nearly choked on her coffee laughing. I noticed that Marco did not laugh as loud. He watched me for a moment, like he was making notes. Then he said he needed to get to a meeting and walked away. When he passed my desk, he brushed my chair lightly with his leg. It might have been an accident, but he did not say sorry, and I did not ask him to. The morning dragged on. I answered emails, transferred calls, fixed 3 scheduling mistakes that were not my fault. Caleb texted once, around 10, asking how Lena had slept and if she had eaten breakfast. He did not ask how I was. I told him she was fine and included a smiling emoji. as if nothing was wrong. He replied with a thanks and nothing else. I stared at that single word longer than I should have. It felt thin, like the last string between us. Around noon, Nadia swung her chair toward mine and asked what I was doing for lunch. I said I would probably eat at my desk. She said that was sad, and that she and Marco were going to the coffee shop down the street. She told me I should come and breathe some adult air. I almost said no. It felt like too much effort to be social. Then I thought of going home to the quiet apartment that night, to Caleb's calm questions and his sad eyes, and I changed my mind. I said I would go. The coffee shop was crowded, full of noisy students and people tapping on laptops. We squeezed into a table by the window. Nadia scooted over when Marco arrived, and somehow I ended up sitting next to him, our shoulders almost touching. It was a small table. There was nowhere else to put my arm. That is what I told myself. Nadia brought up the hug story again, because of course she did. She asked Marco's opinion like it was a fun survey. She asked if it was romantic or pathetic for a man to ask for a hug before work every day. Marco looked at me before he answered. He said it depended on the man, that some people are more affectionate, and that was not a crime. Then he added that if someone hears no, they should respect it, not push. He was trying to sound balanced, I could hear that, but I also heard what he did not say. I said Caleb did not just ask. He pouted when I did not respond. I said he stood there looking like a sad puppy. I said it was not about the hug. It was about him using feelings as a weapon. I made it sound like I was the one under attack. That is what people never understand. Showing feelings can still be a kind of pressure. Nadia backed me up because she always did when the story made men look weak. She said I carried the mental load. She said men who did not manage their own emotions were a burden. Marco nodded slowly and said it sounded like I had a lot on my shoulders. When he said that, something in my chest relaxed. I liked that he saw me that way, as this overworked, underloved woman. It made me feel older, more serious, more important than I actually was. As we ate, we joked about work, bad clients, broken printers. At one point, Nadia got up to get another drink, leaving just me and Marco at the table. The noise around us rose and fell in waves, and for a second it felt like we were inside a bubble. He asked quietly if things with Caleb were really that bad, or if I was just blowing off steam. I told him it was both. I said I joked to stay sane, but the jokes came from somewhere real. I told him Caleb was clingy, that he wanted constant reassurance, that he made everything about feelings. I said I wanted a man who could stand on his own and still be there for me, not one who needed me to hold his hand before work like a mother at the school gate. Marco listened. He did not tell me I was being unfair. He did not ask what Caleb had done right. He just listened and nodded at the parts where I sounded strong. When he finally spoke, he said I deserved a partner who saw how much I did and did not add more emotional debt on top. The way he looked at me when he said deserved made my skin warm. We walked back to the office side by side. At the door, he stepped a little closer when someone else pushed past us, and for a heartbeat his hand pressed against my lower back. He did not leave it there, just a touch to guide me through the crowd. It should have been nothing, but I remembered it later with stupid detail, the warmth of his fingers, the way my body wanted to lean. The afternoon passed in a blur. I answered more emails. I filled in a report. I checked my phone more often than the work required. There was a new notification from the shared cloud account that Caleb and I used for family photos. It said, "File uploaded successfully," with a code number and the word video. I assumed he had saved a clip of Lena at the park or something from work. I did not care enough to tap and see. When I got home that night, Caleb was in the living room again, laptop open. The coffee table was lined with small sticky notes in neat rows, like tiny flags. He closed the laptop when I came in. One note stuck to the edge of the screen had 3 words: call back, follow up. Another had a date and a time written on it. I asked casually if he had a lot of work. He said he was just organizing. He did not say what. Lena ran up and hugged my legs before I could ask more. She wanted to show me a drawing she had made with him. It was our family. Big heads, small bodies, 3 stick people and a house. In her drawing, she had drawn a line between the 2 adults' heads, like a little wall. I laughed and asked why she did that. She said she just liked the space. Caleb did not laugh. After dinner, when Lena was in bed, he sat on the other couch, not next to me. He asked how my day was. I said it was fine. I did not mention Marco or the coffee shop. I told him Nadia and I had talked about annoying clients. He nodded and asked if I had thought about our talk from the night before. I said there was nothing to think about, that I stood by what I had said. He asked if I really believed he was using affection as a weapon. I said he had made me feel guilty that morning. I told him that guilt is a kind of pressure. He said he had not wanted that he had only wanted to feel close before facing a hard day. I told him that his intentions did not matter if the impact on me was heavy. I liked that phrase. I had seen it online, intention versus impact. It made me sound like a serious person. He fell quiet again. He looked down at his hands. For a second I thought he might cry. Instead he took a breath and said he was sorry for making me feel pressured. He said he would work on that. He always said he would work on things. I never saw him as someone who could change much. To me, it sounded like he was admitting blame, and that fed the part of me that needed to be right. Much later, after he went to lie down with Lena for her bedtime story, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Marco. He said he hoped I got home okay, and that the coffee had at least made the day better. I stared at the message longer than I had stared at Caleb's thanks. I felt a little thrill that he had thought about me after work. I answered that it had been nice to breathe, that home had been heavy lately. He replied that he could tell, and that if I ever needed to vent, he was there. He added a smiley with a small wink. It was nothing, and it was everything. I tucked my legs under me and smiled at the screen. In the hallway, I heard the soft click of a drawer closing. I looked up and saw Caleb coming from the sideboard again. He had that same manila folder in his hand for a second before he slid it into his bag. When he noticed me looking, he said he was just tidying paperwork. I said he was turning into an old man with his folders and notes. He gave a small smile that did not touch his eyes. He went to the kitchen to wash a mug. I watched him stand alone at the sink, shoulders slightly hunched, sleeves rolled up. There was a time I would have walked up behind him and hugged him without thinking. Now I stayed where I was, on the couch, my phone warm in my hand, rereading Marco's messages. Later, when we finally went to bed, he lay farther away than ever. The gap between us felt like a visible line. I thought about reaching out just to see what he would do, but then I thought of all the times he had reached toward me and I had pulled away, and something mean in me whispered that it was his turn to feel that emptiness. His phone buzzed once on the nightstand. A calendar reminder lit the screen again. Meeting, personal, Friday, 3:40 p.m. The contact below it was just an emoji of a briefcase. He reached over, turned the screen face down, and closed his eyes. I could have asked what that meeting was. I could have asked if he was okay. Instead, I turned onto my side, facing away from him, and opened my chat with Marco one more time. I woke up the next Saturday to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet dishes. For a second, I forgot what week it was and reached across the bed, expecting Caleb to be there. My hand touched a cold sheet. The space next to me felt wider than it should. I lay there, staring at the ceiling. A part of me wondered if I should go hug him in the kitchen, just to reset things. Then I remembered the way he had said he would work on needing less from me, like he was this noble, wounded man. That thought irritated me. I told myself that if I gave in now, he would learn that sulking worked. I checked my phone first, like always. There was a message from Marco sent late the night before, after I'd already fallen asleep. He had written that he hoped I got some rest, and that if home felt heavy, Work friends could carry some of the weight. There was a little smiley at the end. I liked that he used the word wait. It made my stress sound real and serious. I considered answering right away, but decided to wait. I did not want to seem too eager. I put the phone down and got up. In the kitchen, Caleb was standing at the stove cooking scrambled eggs. He had one earbud in. His shoulders were tense, but his movements were smooth and careful. There were 2 mugs on the counter again, far apart. One near the coffee machine, one by the sink. A third mug with a cartoon sun on it waited on the table for Lena. He saw me and asked if I had slept okay. I said I had slept fine. It was almost true. He asked if I had plans later because his mother had invited us to dinner. He said Ruth wanted to see Lena and us together as a family. He added that she worried when we did not visit for a while. I felt cornered for a moment. I did not feel like sitting in his family's house, pretending everything was fine. Then I turned it around in my head. A visit could be useful. It was a chance to show them that Caleb was the one making things weird, that I was the one holding everything together. I told him we could go, but only if he did not make things awkward. He frowned slightly and asked what I meant. I told him he tended to get quiet and pouty in front of other people, and then it looked like I was the mean one. I said I needed him to act normal. He said he would try. Lena ran into the kitchen in her socks, hair messy, face bright. She asked if we were going to Grandma Ruth's house. She loved that place, probably because Ruth always had cookies. Caleb told her yes, and she did a little dance at the table. I envied her simple joy for a moment and then brushed it away. Kids had it easy. They did not have to think about emotional labor or clingy husbands. The day passed slowly. I cleaned a bit, half-heartedly. Caleb took Lena to the park for an hour so I could have quiet. When they were gone, the apartment felt strangely empty. I walked into the living room and saw his laptop open again on the coffee table. A spreadsheet was on the screen, more filled in lines than before. The first column had dates, the second had short notes like night shift, Lena sick, argument, kitchen. My first instinct was annoyance. It looked like he was keeping score. I told myself it was just his way of feeling in control. He liked order. He liked lists. It did not mean anything. Still, I bent down and locked the screen with a tap of the key, as if that would stop the list from growing. When they came back, he set his phone on the counter. I saw a missed call notification, no caller ID, and then a note below that said voicemail saved. He picked it up before I could read more. He slipped it into his pocket and moved on. I asked if someone had called. He said it was nothing, just a wrong number. I told myself that was probably true. Why would he hide anything? He was not the type. In the car on the way to Ruth's house, Lena sang little songs to herself in the back seat. Caleb drove, eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel. There was a new small device on the windshield near the rearview mirror. It was black and neat, with a tiny red light. I asked what it was. He said it was a dash cam, that he had finally installed the one his brother recommended for insurance. I said it was overkill. I joked that he was turning the car into a spy van. He did not smile much. He just said it was safer this way, that you never know when you will need proof of something. The way he said proof made a small chill run up my arms, but I pushed it away. I told myself he was talking about traffic accidents, not about us. Ruth's house looked the same as always, a small brick place with white curtains and flowers by the door. When we walked in, it smelled like roasted chicken and fresh bread. She greeted Lena first, bending down for a hug. Then she hugged Caleb, her hands holding his shoulders a second longer than usual. When she turned to me, her smile was polite but tight. She asked how I had been. I said I had been busy. I added that work was crazy, that I had to manage everything at home too, so I was tired. That was my favorite way to answer questions. It made me sound like a hero. Ruth nodded and said she was sure I had a lot on my plate. I thought I heard something else under her tone, but I ignored it. Evan and his wife were already at the table with their kids. They waved and asked how we were. I took my seat, making sure to sit next to Nadia's empty chair in my mind. I wished for a second that my loudest friend was there to back me up, but I had my own voice. I could handle this. Dinner started out normal. Ruth passed dishes around. Evan talked about a job site that had flooded. Caleb helped the kids cut their meat. The TV in the corner was off. The only sounds were forks on plates and soft talk. At some point, Evan's wife asked how work was for me. I answered with my usual line, that I was surrounded by children with paychecks, that most of my day was cleaning up other people's messes. They laughed. I felt the room warm up to me. Then, almost without thinking, I added that it did not stop when I got home. Ruth looked up and asked what I meant. She said it gently, but it was still a challenge. I smiled and said I was just joking, that Caleb could be a bit sensitive sometimes, that he needed constant reassurance. I use the word sensitive on purpose. It sounds innocent, but it cuts deep when you use it on a man. Evan asked in a half-teasing way if Caleb had turned into a romantic type, always wanting kisses and flowers. I laughed and said it was not even romantic, just clingy. I said he could not even go to work without asking for a hug like a preschooler. I told them the story of that Tuesday morning. I did not tell it the way it really was. I said he had blocked the kitchen doorway and refused to move until I hugged him. I said he had pouted when I did not react fast enough. I said he had made big sad eyes and asked if I still loved him, like some dramatic movie scene. I added that I had told him he was not a child and that he needed to grow up and go to work. There was laughter at first, a little burst around the table. Evan shook his head and joked that Caleb had always been soft. Evan's wife laughed, then stopped when she saw Caleb's face. Ruth did not laugh at all. She looked at her son, then at me. Caleb cleared his throat. He said he remembered it differently. He said he had simply asked for a hug before a long shift and that the door had slammed hard. His voice stayed calm, but I could hear the hurt under it. I did not want that story in the room. Hurt made people pity him. So I cut in. I told everyone he was exaggerating, that he loved to make himself the victim. I said he was leaving out the part where I was already stressed, where I had the whole day on my shoulders. I explained that I had only set a boundary. I said that if he chose to feel crushed by a simple no, that was his choice. Ruth asked quietly if I had really told him to grow up. I said yes, and that someone had to say it. I reminded them that I had been managing the schedules, the school forms, the bills. I said I could not handle being his emotional babysitter, too. I told the table that women always get blamed for being cold when we are just tired of carrying everything. I saw Evan's wife nodding a little. I took that as a win. Lena, sitting between us, stopped eating for a moment. She looked at Caleb and asked if he had cried that morning. It came out small and curious. He told her he had not cried, that he had just been sad for a little bit. She said that sadness made her stomach hurt. Ruth told her gently that sometimes grown-ups feel sad, but still love each other. I hated that line. It sounded like the end of something. To pull the attention back to me, I joked that I was the bad guy now for not giving a hug. I said people always expected the mother to be soft. I said maybe if more women said no, men would finally grow up. It got a few nervous laughs. The mood felt strange, like a tablecloth pulled too tight. After dessert, while the kids ran outside in the small yard, Ruth asked Caleb to help her in the kitchen. I stayed at the table with Evan and his wife. They talked about soccer practice. My mind wandered. I thought of Marco, of our talks in the coffee shop, how easy it was to be seen as a grown woman there, and not as some cold wife. Through the doorway I heard low voices. I did not catch every word, but I heard Ruth asking Caleb if he was okay. I heard her say she did not like how I talked about him in front of people. I heard her say it was not right for a partner to make another partner the punchline. Caleb said something about trying to keep the peace, about not wanting to fight in front of Lena. The words stung, but I told myself they were just a mother defending her son. Of course she would see him as the victim. She did not see how he could be at home, how much he could lean on me. It was easier for her to blame the woman. That was old and boring. I had no interest in joining that story. On the way home, the car felt even smaller. Lena fell asleep in her seat, her head against the window. The dashcam's tiny light glowed red in the dark. The soft click of the turn signal filled the silence. Caleb finally spoke. He said he had not liked the way I told the story at dinner. He said it made him feel humiliated in front of his family, like he was not a man but a joke. I told him he was being dramatic. I said people told worse stories all the time. I said if he did not want to be the subject, he should not act in ways that sounded ridiculous when repeated. He said he did not understand why I needed to repeat it at all. He said the morning could have stayed between us. I told him he was wrong. I said I needed support, that I needed people to understand what I dealt with. I added that secrets grow mold. That was a phrase I had heard online too. It made me sound wise. He drove with his eyes on the road, his jaw tight. He said he wished I had talked to him instead of turning him into content. The way he used that word made me bristle. I snapped back that if he did not want to be content, he should stop acting like a child in a grown woman's life. The light at the intersection turned red. He stopped the car and reached up to adjust the dash cam. For a second, my face appeared faintly on the little screen, then the road again. He said the device was picking up our voices a bit and that he could mute the sound if I wanted. That sentence made my skin prickle. I said I did not care, that I had nothing to hide. I said he was the one who seemed obsessed with proof. He did not answer. The light turned green. The red record light stayed on. That night, after Lena was in bed, the apartment felt colder. Caleb sat at the dining table with his laptop again. I saw the spreadsheet open, more lines added. He typed a few words, then paused, then typed again. There was a USB drive next to his hand, small and black, with the date written on a piece of tape wrapped around it. I could read the numbers from where I stood. I asked if he had become an accountant or a spy. He said he was just trying to keep track of things so he would not feel crazy. He said writing events down helped him see patterns. I laughed and told him he did not need a spreadsheet to know that I was tired and he was needy. I said I could save him time with that summary. He did not respond. He plugged the USB into the laptop. A small pop-up appeared on the screen that said, "File uploaded successfully." Then he ejected it and set it back on the table. He moved with slow care, as if every step had weight. I went to the couch and grabbed my phone. There were several new messages in the group chat with Nadia and 2 other work friends. Nadia had shared a photo from Ruth's dinner that I did not remember anyone taking. It was of me laughing with my hand in the air, Caleb in the background, looking down at his plate. She had captioned it with a joke about me calling my husband a preschooler. There were laughing emojis in the replies. I added a comment saying that I was just telling the truth and that some men needed to hear it. One of our other friends wrote that Caleb looked like he might cry in the photo. That annoyed me. I did not want pity for him mixed into my story. I replied that he was fine, that he just did his sad puppy face when people saw the real him. Marco messaged me privately a few minutes later. He said he had seen the picture. I had forgotten he followed Nadia. He wrote that I looked good, that I had this strong, sharp expression. He added that he did not think he would like being discussed at family dinners, but that he understood needing to vent. I told him I did not vent, I just told facts. I said it was not my fault if Caleb did not like how the facts sounded. Marco replied that maybe I was with someone who did not fit my level anymore. The words made my heart beat faster. I told myself it was just validation, nothing more. Across the room, Caleb's phone buzzed. A reminder flashed briefly. Paper drop, 11:30 Monday. Then it disappeared. He locked the screen and put the phone face down. I asked if he had errands. He said he had to drop some forms off somewhere. I asked if it was for work. He said it was personal. I joked that he was having an affair with the office printer. He did not smile. He said only that he wanted to get everything in order. Again with the order, again with the calm. Before bed, he told me that he did not want to fight anymore in front of other people. He said he would not respond if I made him a joke again. He said he was tired of being painted as the villain when all he had done was ask for closeness. I told him he was not a villain. Villains had power. I said he was more like a child stomping his feet. He looked at me for a long second, as if he was memorizing my face. Then he nodded and said that maybe I was right about one thing, that respect follows results. He said quietly that he had finally decided to get some. I thought he meant he would get a new haircut or a gym membership. I told him that if he wanted respect, he should start by acting like an adult. He did not answer. He picked up the small USB with the date on it, slipped it into the manila folder, and put the folder into his bag. When we turned off the lights that night, the apartment felt full of tiny blinking things. The router, the dash cam parked outside, the little red indicator on the printer. I saw them all for a moment in my mind and then let sleep take me. I told myself again that I was just living my life, that a hug before work was still just a small thing, no matter how much he and his mother wanted to turn it into something bigger. Nadia's birthday fell on a Thursday, which felt wrong, but she said it meant the bar would not be so crowded. She liked attention, not chaos. She planned the whole thing like a tiny festival, table booked at a bar and grill, group chat reminders, outfits chosen 3 days in advance. The morning of the party, the apartment felt even more distant than usual. Caleb and I moved around each other like we were in different houses. He made coffee. I checked my phone. We said the basic things. Good morning. What time is your shift? Where is Lena's library book? Nothing deeper. As I left for work, he stepped close, but not too close. He did not reach for a hug. He just said he would pick up Lena from kindergarten so I could have time to get ready for the evening. His tone was neutral. It almost sounded like a favor from a stranger. I said that was fine. I told him not to be late because I wanted to take my time with my makeup. He said he would be on time. Then he checked his phone, like he had somewhere else to be. A reminder flashed briefly. Meeting, personal, 3:40 p.m. I saw it before he clicked it away. At work, Nadia could talk about nothing but her birthday. She kept asking if her dress was too much or not enough. She asked if Marco would come. When he answered in the chat that he would try, she made a noise like a teenager. I teased her that she had a crush. She said she could like more than one person in a room and asked me if I was excited too. I said I was. I told her I needed a night away from the man-child energy at home. She asked what Caleb had done now. I sent a short message saying he had taken the hug thing very seriously, like some trauma. I told her he was still acting wounded. She wrote that this was why she stayed single. Marco sent a laughing emoji, then asked what hug thing. Nadia told him to wait and hear the story live. The day dragged, but the thought of the party pulled me forward like a string. After work, I went home to change. The apartment smelled like chicken nuggets and crayons. Lena had eaten with Caleb already. Her plate was on the table with a few peas left. She was drawing at the coffee table, tongue between her teeth. Caleb sat near her with his laptop. The screen showed folders labeled Archive A and Archive B. Inside Archive A, there were more folders with dates. I saw one with the label Home Cam and another Messages. He minimized the window as I walked in, almost by reflex. I asked if he had become a librarian. He said he was just backing up things. He mentioned that the cloud can lose files, that it was better to have copies. His voice was calm, soft. It made my skin itch. He looked up at my outfit. I had put on a fitted top and jeans that made my legs look longer. I had taken extra time with my eyeliner. He said I looked nice. That was all. No extra word, no spark. It annoyed me more than any jealous question would have done. I asked if he minded watching Lena while I went out. He said of course not, that she was his daughter too. He added that his mother could take her on Saturday if I wanted time to rest. The way he said rest made me feel like he knew I was using the party for more than fun, but he did not push. Lena asked where I was going. I told her Auntie Nadia was having a birthday at a place with music and big plates of fries. Her eyes lit up. She asked if she could come. I said it was for grown-ups. She pouted. Caleb told her maybe they could have their own party at home with popcorn and a movie. She cheered up. He walked me to the door, out of habit. But he did not reach for me. No hug, no kiss. I paused for half a second, waiting to see if he would ask. He didn't. Something childish in me wanted to rub that in later. I stepped out and closed the door gently, maybe too gently on purpose, so he could not say anything about slamming. The bar and grill was bright and loud, full of people talking over each other. Nadia had claimed a long table near the middle. Balloons floated above her chair. Everyone was already on their second drink when I arrived. They shouted my name. Nadia hugged me hard and spun me around. Marco sat across from her, leaning back like he owned the air. When he saw me, his eyes ran over my outfit in a way that made my cheeks warm. He told me, in a low tone, that I cleaned up well. I said I tried. Nadia rolled her eyes and said we were both dramatic. We ordered food. We laughed at dumb jokes. At some point, the conversation slid, like water on a table, toward relationships. One friend complained that her boyfriend never posted her on social media. Nadia said she could never date a man who did not show her off. Then she turned to me and asked, loud enough for the whole table, how my hug addict was doing. Everyone looked at me. The music, the lights, the drinks, it all made me feel bigger, like I was on a small stage. I liked that feeling. So I leaned in. I told the hug story again, but with more sound. I raised my voice a little, made big gestures. I said my husband could not go to work without asking for a hug, that he acted like a little boy at the daycare door. I used a baby tone to imitate him, saying he had asked if I still loved him. The table laughed. Some people slapped the table. I said I had told him to grow up and go to work. I said I was not his mother. I said that if he needed a hug to function, he might need a therapist, not a wife. The laughter got louder. Phones were out on the table. I saw one of Nadia's friends lift hers and start to record a short video. She zoomed in on my face while I pulled a mock-sad expression. I felt powerful, like the woman who says what everyone else is thinking. I did not see myself as cruel. I saw myself as honest. If Caleb heard this, I told myself, maybe he would finally understand how ridiculous he had looked. We were still laughing when I heard someone say my name from behind me. I turned. Caleb stood at the end of the table, holding his jacket. He wore a simple shirt and jeans, nothing fancy. He looked smaller here, under the bright bar lights, like he did not belong. Nadia waved at him, surprised but friendly. She had invited him in the group chat weeks before, saying spouses could come if they wanted. I had forgotten about that. I saw his eyes flicker to me, then to Marco, then back. He asked if there was room for him to sit. It was quiet enough around our part of the table that I heard every word. I said, of course, in a light tone. I scooted over. Someone else shifted. He sat opposite me, next to Marco. I wondered how much he had heard. My heart beat faster, but not from guilt. It was more like a thrill. Being caught made everything sharper. I told myself that if he was embarrassed, that was his problem. He had walked into a public place. The waitress came. He ordered a soda. He did not order food. Nadia tried to pull him into the fun, asking about his work at the hospital. He answered politely, short phrases. The people who did not know him well called him quiet. I knew better. I could see he had gone numb. A little later, someone at the other end of the table brought up the hug story again. They said they could not believe a grown man had needed a hug to go to work. They asked if he had heard the story yet. Nadia laughed and said he had probably lived it. They all looked at me, waiting. The music seemed to fade. I decided to double down. Backing off would make me look weak. I said yes, he had lived it. I repeated the baby voice line, softer this time but still clear. I said that in our house, one of us does the mental load and the other does the hug requests. A few people laughed. One of the girls lifted her phone again, capturing the moment with a little cheer. Caleb sat very still. His hands were on the table, fingers loose. He did not slam anything. He did not shout. He did not defend himself. He just watched me, then looked around at the faces, then at his drink. Then he did something that bothered me far more than if he had argued. He smiled. It was small and thin, but it was a smile. He said that it was a funny story, that I liked to make people laugh. He lifted his soda a little, like a toast, and took a sip. People relaxed. The tension broke. Someone called him a good sport. Nadia joked that she would die if anyone told stories about her at family dinners. Marco just watched, eyes sharper than his relaxed body. After a while, Caleb checked his phone and said he had to get back, that Lena was with his mother now, and he needed to pick her up before it got too late. He said goodbye to the table. He did not kiss my cheek. He did not ask when I would be home. He just nodded once and walked away through the crowd. I watched his back until it disappeared. I felt angry at him for not making a scene. In my mind, if he had argued or sulked, I could have told myself he was childish. But this quiet, neat exit made me feel like the childish one. I did not like that feeling, so I turned it off. Marco leaned in and said my husband seemed like a nice guy, just soft. I said soft men break women's backs with their needs. He nodded slowly, then changed the subject, telling a story about a client from hell. Everyone laughed again. The night rolled back into noise. When I finally stepped outside, the air was cooler. The parking lot was half full, lit by yellow lamps. People stood in small groups, smoking or talking. I walked toward the side, where Caleb had parked our car earlier. I still had his spare key in my bag. He had offered to leave the car for me and take a rideshare. He was always practical like that. He was standing by the driver's door when I came around the corner, hands in his pockets. The dash cam's tiny red light glowed inside the windshield like an eye. He watched me walk up. His face was calm, almost too calm. He asked if I had fun. I said I had. I told him Nadia loved her party. I added that he could have stayed longer. He said he had seen enough. His voice did not rise. It was flatter than the parking lot asphalt. He said he had not realized I liked telling stories about him that much. I said everyone told stories about their partners. I said it was normal. I said he was lucky I did not tell worse. He asked if I understood how it felt to walk into a room and hear people laugh at him because of something I said. I told him he was overthinking. I said they were laughing at the situation, not at him. I said if he was confident, jokes would not matter. He looked at me with that same tired expression. He said that when the joke is always the same, it stops being a joke. He mentioned the video. My chest tightened. I asked what video. He said one of Nadia's friends had tagged him by mistake before removing it. In the clip, I was doing the baby voice. The caption called him a grown baby. He said he had seen it before it disappeared. He said he had saved it. I told him he had no sense of humor. I said he was stalking people's stories like a teenager. I used the word controlling. I told him he was making it weird. He listened, eyes steady on mine, not flinching. He said he was done arguing. He said he had heard enough, seen enough. He said he was not going to fight for a place in his own story. He unlocked the car and opened the door. I asked if he was really that upset about one hug. The words came out harsher than I planned. He said it was not about the hug. He said it was about how I enjoyed cutting him down in front of others. He said it was about how I told our life like a joke with only one fool. I wanted to say that if he did not act like a fool, there would be no joke. I wanted to say that my friends needed to know the truth. Instead, I told him he was free to tell his own side if he was brave enough. He shook his head and said he would, but not the way I meant. The ride home was quiet. The dash cam recorded the road, our faces in half shadow, the silence between us. When we got to the apartment, he went straight to Lena's room to check on her. She was already asleep, a soft shape under blankets. He kissed her forehead, then came back to the living room. He said he would be sleeping in the guest room for a while. He said he needed space to think. I laughed and asked if this was his big revenge, leaving me the big bed. He said it was not revenge. He said it was just distance. He took a pillow, his phone, and a charger. When he passed the sideboard, he opened the drawer with the small key I had heard before. He took out the manila folder, slid a new USB inside, and closed it. I saw the date on the tape, the current day. He locked the drawer again. I asked if he was hiding love letters. He said no, just facts. He said facts did not change when people laughed. I told him that was a dramatic line. He shrugged and walked down the hall. In the guest room, I heard the faint tumble of drawers, the soft thump of a suitcase being slid out from under the bed. He did not pack, not yet, but the sound was there, a hint. I stood alone in the living room, lights dim, my makeup smudged at the edges. On my phone, notifications glowed. Nadia had posted a blurry group shot. People had commented that we all looked amazing. In the middle, my face was wide open in a laugh. Caleb was at the edge of the frame, half turned away. Kelsey had messaged me too. She had seen Nadia's earlier story before it vanished. She asked if things were okay between me and Caleb. She said he looked hurt in the clip. She asked if I really called him a preschooler in front of everyone. I typed back that people were too sensitive, that it was just a joke. I said Caleb liked to play the victim. I added that if he could not handle a little teasing, that was his problem. I hit send and threw the phone on the couch. In the quiet, the printer in the corner clicked in Word once, then spit out a single blank page. I frowned and walked over. No document was in the queue. The page was just white. I picked it up, then put it down again. Caleb called from the guest room asking if I had printed something. I said no. He muttered that sometimes machines made tests. I went to bed alone for the first time in years. The mattress felt big and strange. I told myself this was freedom, that I finally had space. In the dark, I saw the faint light under the guest room door and heard the soft hum of his laptop, steady as breathing. The first time I let Marco kiss me, it felt less like a choice and more like sliding downhill on wet grass. It was a Tuesday again. Nadia called in sick, so it was just me and Marco at the coffee shop. We sat closer than usual because the place was crowded. Our knees touched under the table. He asked if things at home had calmed down. I told him Caleb had moved into the guest room and was acting like a silent martyr. I said he was still collecting files like some sad little detective. Marco said I deserved peace. He said I had a light that was getting dimmer. It sounded like a line, but I liked it. When we left, we took the side street back toward the office. He walked close. At the corner, where the building's security camera pointed down, he stopped, brushed my hair back, and kissed me. It was short and soft. I kissed him back, just enough to feel something. I told myself it wasn't real cheating. Not yet. More like a preview. I said in my head that a woman needs proof there are other options before she commits to being stuck. That evening, Caleb and I met at the playground to trade Lena. She had been with him after school. She ran between us in little circles, asking who she would sleep with that night. I said she was with me. Caleb nodded. He asked, quiet, if I'd had a good day. I said it was fine. He asked if I'd been with Nadia at lunch. The question made my stomach twitch. I said yes, automatically. He looked at me for a long second, then said he had checked Nadia's story on her break and hadn't seen me in any of the photos. I snapped that he was stalking my friends again. I said it was creepy. He didn't argue. He said only that people leave shadows everywhere now, location tags, cameras, receipts. He added that lies were harder work than truth. That night, after Lena was in bed, we sat at opposite ends of the living room. His mug was on one counter, mine on another. He turned off the TV and said he didn't want more fights, that repeating himself was pointless. He said from now on, he would handle everything properly and through the correct channels for Lena's sake. I laughed and asked if that meant another spreadsheet. He didn't rise to it. He just picked up his phone. A reminder flashed. Meeting, personal, Friday 9:10, downtown. He silenced it, said goodnight, and shut the guest room door with a soft click that felt louder than any slam. I thought we were going to a parenting meeting. That's what Caleb said in his message. There was a session at the courthouse about co-parenting, that it might help us talk without fighting. He said it would be neutral. I read neutral as, I still have a chance to win. The lobby was bright and echoing, full of people and signs. Ruth stood near the benches, with Lena's backpack on her arm. Kelsey was there too, holding her coffee like a shield. Nadia had come for moral support already on her phone. I walked up, ready to explain how Caleb had gone cold and childish. Before I could start, a woman in a blazer stepped in front of me and asked my name. When I said it, she handed me a thick envelope and said it was official service, loud enough that a few heads turned. Caleb did not rush to me. He stood beside Ruth, hands folded. He said he had filed for divorce, that these were temporary orders. The words slid over each other: petition, custody, primary residence, overnight schedule. There were dates, screenshots, clips from the bar, notes from his spreadsheet. I heard that Lena would live with him during the week. I heard that I had to move out by a certain date. I heard the clerk ask if I understood, and then the doors to the inner hallway opened, and Caleb walked through them with our daughter.